everybody, and welcome back to 40 Years of Great Games. And this is where I'm taking a look at the past 40 years and telling you the best games from each year. Today, I am pleased to talk about one of the greatest years of gaming, and that is the year 2004. In fact, if I rank all my years, I would probably consider this to be the third best years of board gaming. And there are so many great games that, like Goa, Fairy Tale, Battle Station, Seven Ages, Tumbling Dice, that didn't even make my list. But some really groundbreaking games came out this year. So we'll start with number 10, and this one's not so much groundbreaking. I thought it was one of the best versions of Carcassonne, and that's Carcassonne City. Now, Carcassonne itself, a tile-laying city-building game, or maybe just kind of building a map, was really honed in different directions, and I think Carcassonne City does it best, to the point where if I'm going to play Carcassonne with someone, this is still the best version to bring out and teach people. It has the walls, has a great visual appeal to the game itself. It was easy and yet offers some good strategic choices. Number 9 is Reef Encounter. Richard Breese, I've talked about him in the past. He has done some fantastic games. Reef Encounter may be the best game he's ever designed. Of course, that's going to be up for debate. A lot of people like different games from his Key series, Cathedral, Keytown, Keyflower, etc. But Reef Encounter took some of the tile laying. It almost is very similar to Dr. Knizia's Tigris and Euphrates, but you're placing and building reefs and then eating these reefs. It's a gorgeous game with a cool theme, and vicious and mean too. As you're trying to protect reefs, build them up, eat them, score in different ways. It's very unique and very few games are like it. Number 8 is one of the biggest splashes that came out in 2004, and that is War of the Ring. Now, War of the Ring did a couple things. It put the 3 designers who put it together on the map. It brought the Lord of the Rings was already kind of a popular theme out there with the movies coming out and such, but War of the Ring took the Lord of the Rings, the books, and put it in a game. Now, I'm not talking about parts of it. I'm not talking about a battle. It put everything on the table with gorgeous miniatures and a huge map and political intrigue and dice. And you actually had to get the Fellowship to throw the ring in Mount Mordor and stopping them and splitting people off. And it's a big, complex style game, but one that has weathered really well. People are still playing and having a good time with it today. A great 2-player game. I always say it's Lord of the Rings in a box, and that still holds up. Number 7 is a very strange game that came out this year called Dungeon Twister. When I talk about this, many people get confused with the game Twister, and Dungeons has nothing to do with that. In fact, Dungeon Twister looks like a dungeon crawl, but it's more than that. Each person has 8 fantasy characters that have been thrust in this dungeon by a mad professor who's basically putting on his weird reality show. And in this game, you are trying to get points. You get a point by KOing someone on the other team or by getting someone to go out the other end of the dungeon. And the dungeons, each of the tiles, twist and turn, and you find weapons, and there's a card combat system. And in fact, there's very little luck in this game. This game is full of great strategy. The only luck is a little bit in how the board is set up. After that, you have to outmaneuver and outthink your opponent. There's plenty of expansions for Dungeon Twister. They came out with Dungeon Twister 2 later on and a Dungeon Twister card game, both of which were quite good, but the initial concept itself is very intriguing and makes for a great, almost chess-like 2-player game. Number 6 is Lost Valley, which was just reprinted a couple years ago. Lost Valley is about going and panning for gold. And the thing that initially attracted me to this game was that, unlike Carcassonne and other tile-laying games, instead of using squares, this one used rhombuses. And well, that was kind of an intriguing idea, but what really makes me like the game is just how fast it is. I'm going to take an action, I'm going to take an action, and you're going out and crossing rivers and panning for gold and searching and hunting animals or chopping down trees. Parts of it are kind of mundane sounding in a sense, like, you build a trap to catch fish, but it really works well. You can go back to the store and you're just trying to get gold as quickly as you can. It's fast, it's intriguing, it's a great theme put together very well, and that is Lost Valley. Number 5 is only a card game, and yet I ranked it highly on here because I still play this card game today, and that is No Thanks. No Thanks this was a very interesting year, 2005, because Z-Man Games, who most people hadn't heard of at this point, they put out some games. This put them on the map. They brought Reef Encounter. That was one of the games that they brought over to America. But No Thanks, a small little card game that sold all over the place because the simple concept was take a card. I don't want to take the card. Then put a chip on that card. And you keep going around, but then eventually the pile of chips on the card is so tempting you take the card, which is worth negative points, but those chips will help you prevent taking other cards. A really simplistic game. It's simply one mechanism, and yet it works extremely well and is still being reprinted today, although today the printing rights of this are held by Mayfair Games. Number 4 is going to probably be a lot of people's number 1 for this year, and that is Power Grid. Friedman Freese was known for making all sorts of different games, from light games to heavier games. This may be one of the heaviest games he's ever made. In fact, it originally was done in a form where they were drawing crayon tracks all over the board, but then was condensed into this Power Grid, which was a game, is a game that's considered by many people to be one of the most definitive heavy Euro games that there is, and when you play it, you'll see why. There's auctions in the game, something I'm not usually a big fan of, but the auction in this game for the power plants, and then you use those power plants to buy, you get resources to power those plants, and slowly you're building your network of power across the map. If you don't like the 2 maps that are included with the game, they've made at least 12 or 15 other maps of all different countries, each one having its own different, how does this work? Like, for example, the Koreas, there's 2 different sections of the map, North Korea and South Korea. Italy, the map is kind of small. France has some different cities connected, and you're trying to work out your money in this game. It's very mathy, but even though it can sound boring and the box cover looks boring as all get out, the game itself is just a fascinating interplay of knowing when to buy, trying to be in last place as long as you can over the course of this game until it's critical to get out in front. Really cool Power Grid. Number 3 is a war game that helped to put Days of Wonder on the map. Now, Days of Wonder was already well known for making some really great component games, but this year they had a 1-2 punch that put them at the front. A small company suddenly became the biggest name in the industry because of these 2 games. And the first of those 2 games was Memoir 44. Memoir 44, which was brought out in 2004 to commemorate the 50th anniversary, or was it the 60th anniversary, sorry, of the Normandy invasion. It brought little plastic soldiers all over the board, and it let you roll dice. It took the commands and colors that was very popular that Richard Borg had done from Battle Line, the Civil War game, brought it to a World War II setting, and wow, did this game take off. Everyone played it. You could play 2 players, and then they introduced this Overlord scenario where it was 4-on-4, which was fascinating. They did a great job at bringing World War II to a very manageable level. For long-time war games had been very, very, complex, hex and counter, almost a scene where many of the people involved almost were like, well, if you don't know how to play this, I don't have time to teach you. It was almost like this unattainable thing. And now Memoir 44 brought it to the masses, which actually irritated some of those crusty, diehard war gamers. But for many people, it was thrilling to be able to play these fun, quick, fast battles. Well, that was the first punch. The second one from Days of Wonder is my number 2 game, is Ticket to Ride. Have you heard of Ticket to Ride? Probably. It is by far the biggest hit of this decade. Just like the 90s were ruled by Catan, or was it Catan? The aughts were ruled by Ticket to Ride, which is still coming out. A new version just came out this week for Ticket to Ride. There are many different maps. The concept of it, taking its start in a bit of Rummy, where you're collecting cards and then building them on the board. Alan Moon had created many games prior to this, and he's created many games since, but this is the game he will probably be most well known for forever. Ticket to Ride, a simple game, one that could be taught to anyone, easily playable on the iOS, playable online, a lot of fun. It is my wife's favorite game. It is one of my most played games in my collection. Various maps, the original United States map, still pretty good after all these years, a fantastic game. And it's still not my number 1, although it could be, I suppose. My number 1 game from 2004 is out of print of sorts, and that is Heroescape. Now, Heroescape has been kind of reprinted just last year with the Magic the Gathering board game, a lot of the same mechanisms. But when Heroescape first came out, it was just kind of mind-blowing. It was a toy that was a game. It had three-dimensional terrain that interlocked and you could build together. And if you bought multiple sets, you could make huge, gigantic dioramas for not that expensive a price. This game was sold at Toys R Us and KB. You could find it all over the place. Unfortunately, not so much today, but you could build these big things, and then it just let you create any kind of battle you wanted. You could take robots and go up against ninjas and go against samurai and go against Revolutionary War soldiers and go up against Roman legionnaires, and then eventually they had the set come out that let you go up against superheroes. And it was so cool, this concept. And there are people today, I mean, this game came out 12 years ago, and I've met adults, young adults, who said they grew up with this game. I was an adult when it came out, and it made me a kid again. There was so much entertainment, fun, simple, and yet there was different powers, and you could build so many different armies. And this game has a dedicated fan base. This game has been out of print for 5+ years, and this dedicated fan base still keeps this game alive, building custom characters. I have many of them myself. I was just at Gen Con and saw a group of people still playing it and having a great time. And while many people will not consider this to be the best game of that year, for me, hands down it is. It's still a very fun one. A good chunk of my gaming collection is taken up with space for HeroScape, and I don't care because the game is that much fun. 2004 was an amazing year for gaming, but can you believe 2005 was even better? Come back next time for more for 40 years of great games. I'm Tom Vasel, your host, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.